Okay, so after I recorded this podcast, I was editing an Instagram video with a rant, and I realized that I accidentally recorded a conversation between a really good friend of mine and I talking about the Clayton and Brandon Jones podcast where I was mentioned. My friend who I'm talking to in this audio clip, I'm disguising their voice because there's no reason why they need to be involved. But this is a person who knew my ex-boyfriend, a person I've known for a very long time, a person that has been in the entertainment industry, knows the social media world. And I think this conversation really will help you, whoever is listening, understand why I am talking about this now, where my head is at. This is just a real ass conversation. And I think it helps really paint the picture as to why this is being talked about right now. Why? Do we get a little mean? Yeah. But it's two girlfriends discussing some shit. So this is the real ass shit. And yeah. So read it and weep. Here it is. This is our conversation right after I learned about the podcast. Literally, I was with this person in the moment when I found out about it, and we started playing the clips together. And this was our immediate reaction to hearing Brandon Jones talking on Clayton's new podcast, Beyond the Cover, and us just specifically listening to the clips where I was mentioned, my ex-boyfriend was mentioned, and our reaction. Then we will get into the rest of the podcast. But I just want to start off right in the beginning by explaining to you why this podcast is so long, why I'm getting into all of this once again. So here it is. Welcome to Recipe for Crazy.
And doesn't show their likes, you know they're not getting any, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It just should make you feel better. Look.
Oh, she hides her likes?
Yeah. Come on, look. 209,000 followers. Obviously, these are all bot. Because take a look at this. Here she is. 4 days ago.
How many comments?
I don't see any.
Oh my God.
One? You're kidding. 4, 5, 6, 7. And one of them was her. And literally, it's a fucking carousel post.
Oh my God. Oh.
Even less. 1, 2, 3.
That is so embarrassing.
And she hides her likes.
That is nice to hear, actually. That is really hilarious.
This is what's happening. They're probably working together. Like, what is she even doing now?
Could just be doing this to get attention again.
I think they are. And that's why I don't think you should say anything, because you already gave it to them. And that's exactly what they want. That is, like, so rude, what they did. Like, they're all mean and cheaters. I'm like, I would never be able to, like, do that to someone who I'm friends with. Like, Son hung out. It's so gross.
He's so fucked up for all of this, because he and Brandon, I'm not kidding, were best friends.
I remember, actually, the first time you came over here to tell me about him, you FaceTimed him. You wanted me to meet him on FaceTime, and you remember that? And he was with that guy.
I don't remember. I believe you, though.
He was with that guy. I remember seeing the guy. But, like, it's so funny, because, like, these people aren't even that famous. They don't even have that many followers or anything.
No.
Like, she's getting ready to fall out.
She's falling out.
That's why I don't think you should do a podcast on it at all.
I'm just going to say what I really think and my true opinion on it.
It's disgusting that friends with people and you're hanging out with them and you're literally fucking their boyfriend.
The whole thing is disgusting. And I'm going to say it honestly feels like irrelevant at this point. And it's not even worth my breath because I'm so... It's so gross. The whole thing's disgusting.
It's like, it's so hedonistic.
I know. It's like, honestly, like there's so many men and people out in the world, and the fact that you like were so obsessed with my boyfriend, who you knew me, was your friends, it was your fiance's best friend, and you had a relationship with me. Like, no. I know.
I think it's horrible that these people are terrible. They're all terrible people. The whole show is so weird, too, because you're like, you get famous on the show, but, like, most of them just die out.
There's some people that don't, but it's very few in between, like Nick Viall and, like, Hannah Brown, Tyler Cameron. Like, there's certain people, but it's just like anything, because you're dealing with a large group of people that get brought into a show. So there's only going to be a few standout people.
Yeah.
Every single person's going to come out of it on top, but they're all hoping to. It's like they're all playing the lottery.
I think they're in cahoots, because why bring this up now? Makes no sense.
Clayton just came out with a podcast, so he's probably asked Brandon to be on it, because so Clayton's podcast is brand new. And getting Brandon to talk about the story would be a huge get for him, because he's never spoken publicly about the breakup. And people are way more invested in Brandon than Serene.
What you were saying was like mean to him, but
No, so this was before. And then it came out that he cheated, and Serene did like a podcast tour talking about it, and he never said anything. I'm not going to be mean when I talk about it, but like I am going to address the fact that a lot of the puck, it felt very fake to me.
my honest opinion was like, I felt like, because this was how long ago? More than a year ago, with their breakup.
Yes.
This is my opinion of like just knowing very bare minimum. Like,
I know, I want to hear it.
I think he was upset about it, like at the time.
Right.
I believe those were true feelings. I don't think it's still, you could even almost hear us like, he's like trying to sound like it just seemed a little fake, but not the fact that I'm sure there's kernels of truth throughout, but yeah, a little bit exaggerated. Yes. And sounding like more deep, because obviously it's been a year. I'm sure he fucking probably has a girlfriend or dated a million to away then. Bottom line is it almost seems like gratuitous. Like, what's the purpose of you even talking about it anymore?
It felt like he was very performative, although, exactly what you just said, although I feel like there's elements of truth in a lot of things that he said, but it did feel very performative, and I almost wish he just came on there as like a regular person instead of like trying so hard, because it's like clearly it's been over a year. If you haven't processed this and are over it, then I feel very like there's something seriously wrong with you, because it's been a very long time, and you're talking about a relationship that was very short.
You have to probably listen to the whole thing before you say anything.
Yeah. I feel very confident, actually, in what I will end up saying. I think it'll be good, because I just need to stick to how I truly feel without being too mean.
Right.
That's it.
I mean, I don't doubt that he wasn't upset, but I mean, come on.
It's so dumb.
I bring it up again, I guess. If they're bringing it up again, I'm like, yeah.
But I'm just going to do it in the way how I really feel, and not be like how emotional I was about it before, and not be like weird. Something else I haven't brought up. So Serene also went on a different podcast recently, and it was so fake. And I almost talked about it in my podcast, but then, and I did, I think, record it, but I never posted it because my mom got really sick and I just like stopped podcasting for a while, but I never addressed that either. And I wanted to address that too, because the more I ruminate on this and think about it and how I've seen her, the things she's done and the moves she's made.
What can you say new? That people don't know. I could have sworn you told me there was something you wanted to share, but you were waiting for something. This could be your moment to say everything you need to say, because you might not get a chance to, because it is getting to be old now.
I need to think about it. I need to go and do this, actually. For real.
Listen to the whole podcast, you gotta get true understanding.
Yes. So I can have a real...
Otherwise, like, this is really getting...
Are we really still talking about this? It feels like a fight for relevancy, but I'm going to address it. And I can't sound like a lunatic. Like,
you should say, I'm calm. I want to explain to you what it really was like. Say things in a way that's more calm now, as opposed to hysterical and saying, yeah, but you can just say things like, no, now that he's talking about it, even though it doesn't seem irrelevant, but those who want to know, this is really what it was like. And I would say, like, what it felt like. I'm living my life with my boyfriend, and I really was trusting. Honestly, like, I did feel these things. Like, you know when you think you're crazy, when you say girls, like when you feel something?
yes.
Trust me, you're probably right. You know what I mean? Like, and she was my friend. Like, we would all hang out. Like, I just thought, oh, no way. No, she's my friend. And then the other girls, too. Like, you could say things now, so yeah, it's good. Crazy, you know, like, this is what happened, this is the thing, this is why, da, da, da. And then it's go around and tell the truth and tell the story. I'm going to tell you my story with no bias, with no hysteria, with no feelings attached to it. I might have some feelings, right, but not to that extent, right?
Right. You're so right.
Like in a very smart way, yeah.
Yes. And I'm feeling it right now, because I'm very calm right now.
Tell the truth.
Yes. Explain what it felt like in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm brought back there, and so since I had to get brought back there, let's all go back there for a moment. Let's actually go back.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
But now you can even say a little bit of like what you did. Say like, I was probably blind. I was too trusting and naive, or you could even say things like, listen, I was taking him back knowing he was doing these things that are so in love. If you could admit those things too, right?
Right.
You could do that.
Yes.
People want to hear
the real truth. I knew all these things and still brought him back into my home.
Yeah. I mean, think about that before you do.
Well, I actually didn't know about the Genevieve Serene stuff until later, after I found out that. Done.
Yes. All right, good luck.
I'm going to get into a lot of things that I have not said that I'm going to say right here and now. The fact that you were capable of doing that at your ripe age is beyond disgusting. I think she is just as evil and manipulative as he is. Very calculated in the moment and still now. Hey, it's Alanna. Noelle. Recipe for Crazy. Welcome back to the show. It is, what is today? It's 1:42 exactly. It's a Tuesday afternoon. I am in partially cloudy Los Angeles, California. I went to a TikTok event yesterday. I'm in from Florida. We have things to talk about. Let's talk about the event. Let's talk about my dating life. Not really. What we're really going to talk about today is The Bachelor. We're talking about it. Brandon Jones went on former Bachelor Clayton's podcast to discuss his relationship with Serene. They met on Bachelor in Paradise. It's been about 20 years since they broke up. And somehow I am involved in this relationship. And so obviously I'm going to talk about it. And I do still have a lot to say about it. There's things I did not say at the time that now with hindsight I can say and will say. And, am I interested in continuing to discuss The Bachelor? Not really, because the show, much like this podcast, isn't paying me. I was on that show as an employee. If my entire life was not destroyed because of my decision to accept that job, we would not be talking about it. In fact, if that show never happened, there's a lot of things that probably would have never happened in my life. I am not blaming them. In fact, they encouraged me to not date the producer that I dated when it was all occurring. In fact, I should have listened to them. They were onto something there. But I don't listen. My vagina has a mind of her own, and she will go wherever she chooses, no matter what anybody says. I was actually writing this bit the other day. I was going to tell everyone, I'm in love. And then I will carefully take you through very specific details about this man and rationalize poor decision-making on his end, only for you to discover that I'm describing Jeffrey Dahmer. And then I would explain, see, this is why you can't trust anything I say when it comes to men, because I will justify about anything they do when I'm in love. And that was kind of the bit. This is a warning. I'm going to be treating this microphone as if it is my therapist, because I struggle talking about that experience with anybody that does not have a financial interest in hearing about it. That is how uninterested I am in talking about it. And what I think people feel when listening to this conversation and the events that transpired. So I have to gaslight myself into thinking I'm talking to my therapist just so I can get out the words. That's how little I fucking care. Now that you know that, let's continue. Before we get into that, can I just talk about the TikTok event for a second? Yes, I can, because you're my therapist, so I can tell you. So, TikTok invited me to a creators event. That was Monday, which I am very grateful for the invitation. I was thinking about this, something that I'm going to write to the people who invited me. TikTok, as sad and pathetic as this is to admit, has changed my life in a way that I struggle to describe, because TikTok was where I first went viral for a video packing lunch for my boyfriend with a voiceover of my thoughts. The boyfriend was said Bachelor producer at the time, the artist formerly known as Kooks. That's how we will be referring to him throughout this episode as well. That being said, that video got 6-7 million views, whatever it was. It was actually crazy. Taking myself back to that moment, I was really trying to go viral on TikTok because I am a writer. And for a very long time, since the first day, honestly, when I started in reality television, I never wanted to do it. I'm a writer. I've always wanted to make movies, write books and have people actually be interested in seeing them or reading it. However, why does anyone care if you're absolutely nobody? It takes a long time. It's very difficult to transition from reality television into film and where I wanted to go without being broke. That's the real thing. Anyone can do it. Where I struggle is I like money. I do. I'm motivated by money. And I was like, okay, I'm seeing that all these people are going viral and making money. If I could do that and gain a following, when I do inevitably put out a book, people will be interested in reading it. So that was my motivation going into it. For months, I was posting every day. I was posting just bullshit stuff. I don't even know. And then this thought came to me in the middle of the night. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. I'll never forget it. And I was thinking about packing lunch for my boyfriend. I was thinking in my mind, well, what if I say, don't worry, I didn't poison you? And then coincidentally, someone does happen to poison him that day because, I don't know how many enemies he has. I know, these people are fucking weird, Bachelor producers. I don't know, they're fucking crazy. What if someone poisons him? And then I implicate myself because I happened to write a note that said, hey, I didn't poison you. Now I'm the prime suspect. And I already was a suspect because we were dating, living together in love. Of course, it's always the lover that is the murderer. So I was like, you know what? Forget that. I can't do that. Then the idea came, well, what if I somehow was able to convey this thought, this insignificant little thought, just one of a million thoughts that come to me in fucking every 60 seconds. If I was somehow able to convey that in the video, and then the idea came to pack the lunch with a note and burn it, write a new note, and then a star was born. Am I a star? No, I'm actually very insignificant. I'm nobody. So that was that. And I posted it. And I remember saying to my boyfriend at the time, oh, I just had this idea. I think it's really funny. And he's like, tell me what it is. Because that was one of the things I enjoyed about that relationship is we were able to be creative together and have discussions like that. And it was always very fun and fulfilling. And I said to him in this instance, well, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to be about it type of deal. Let me just make the video and you can see it, because so many times I would make videos, they'd flop and it'd be so disappointing. And I built up this whole idea. So I did that. Didn't tell him, didn't tell anyone, just did the video. And then within like 24 hours, popping off millions of views. I could not fucking believe it. And then, I was typecasted by TikTok into this lunch packing, intrusive thought voiceover type person. And I continued to pack lunch for a very long time. And then obviously, the rest of the story. If you don't, you can always go look. It's burned on the internet for all of time for anyone to see. I think back to that time and I'm thinking, God, my boyfriend must have been so scared of me gaining a following because of how many secrets he had. Anywho, TikTok changed my life because it gave me this confidence and platform to be creative, which I've always had creative outlets because for the past decade, I've been employed as a creative producer on multiple shows, which have been fulfilling, some not as much. I always wanted something for myself. This is something for me. And I get emotional talking about it because this has been my dream since I was a child. I remember as a kid watching movies, crying, laughing. And I would think, oh, I want to be an actress because I thought the actors made the films. They wrote them, they made them, and obviously in some instances they do, but mostly not. And then I learned that actually, no, there's a director, there's a writer, there's these things. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to create something for others to feel connected to. Oh my God, now I'm really going to get emotional. I'm getting my period, by the way. I feel like that's important to note. I was getting my hair done yesterday and I was literally crying in the chair about another thing we can talk about another time, but not my mom that time. My mom too, always my mom. But anyways, I get emotional thinking about this. I was very much alone as a child. I spent a lot of time alone and movies were always there for me. They kept me company when I was a kid. And so to be able to create things that I want to create, that I want to make to make people laugh or whatever they feel from watching it or think I'm fucking crazy, that is such a gift. It's been always what I wanted to do my whole life. And I'm grateful every single fucking day that I get to do this. I love it. And I can't wait to see where it goes from there. So what happens next? So anyways, I got invited to this TikTok event. Very grateful and honored to be there. I'm going to tell you what I really took away from the entire experience. Number one, I realized why people hate influencers. They suck. Honestly, they suck. And everyone thinks they're fucking cool. I'm like, what? No one here is cool. First of all, being an influencer or a creator, it's a creators event. We're creators. We're creating things. Yes, everyone's creating things. No one's cool. You're a fucking human being. Okay. Shut the fuck up. Everyone's annoying. I'm also equally as annoying. So I'm sure anyone who met me probably took away the same sentiment. Everyone there was annoying. Not in your face annoying, but just like, whatever it is, what it is. I don't give people chances either. And I just don't like people in general. So, I don't listen to anything I say, but I just want to tell you a couple things that I took away from this experience that really make me laugh. So allow me to tell you two of the most memorable moments from the TikTok event. First of all, they had a panel, okay, where there were two creators, to offer advice. Now, I understand that there's probably a large group of the creators that were there that probably, because there are people from all around the country, they probably don't know a lot of creators. They probably don't know a lot of creators. So this was probably exciting thing to be able to connect with people. And this is such a good idea that TikTok did this. Let me just say this. I'm not trying to trash the event at all. I just want to give you my honest takeaways from it. And I do understand that TikTok will probably never ask me back again if anyone happened to listen to this podcast. But what am I supposed to do? Come on here and lie to you? I'm not going to do that. Also, I want to know, first of all, I think I might have been the only white heterosexual person there, which is fine. Because honestly, I hate white heterosexual people. So that's great for me. But it felt like that TikTok is like clearly pushing a very specific agenda, which is community, being an advocate, and the minorities. Anyone who is doesn't identify as straight, anybody who's non-white. And I applaud that because if I'm being honest, most white people get more opportunities than anybody else. So it is admirable of TikTok to be specifically inviting people who don't necessarily get a seat in the room all the time. But I did wonder, did they mean to invite me here? Did they not know I was white? A white woman, just like a regular ass white woman who just likes dick. Did they not realize that? I felt like I shouldn't be there, but that's neither here nor there. So there's a panel and these creators are offering everyone advice. And one of the things that this girl said, it was so hard not to laugh. It was so hard not to laugh. So the leader of the panel asked these creators, can you offer advice? What advice can you offer the people in the room when they leave here? And this girl goes, what I think everyone needs to really remember here is you really need to take walks. You really need to take walks. Don't forget to take walks. It's backed by science. Walks are backed by science. They're so good for you. I was like, really? Did people really just travel here from across the country for some bitch to sit across from them and tell them to take a walk? Like, literally, what is she saying right now? They didn't say anything, didn't already know. And, whatever. These people have millions of followers. They're way better than me. I'm pathetic and nothing. But, I just found that really hilarious that she told people to take a walk. Okay. This is what really makes me laugh. So at another point during the event, there was this, it was like speed dating, but networking. And then they had these prompts, these questions for you guys to ask each other, which was very cool. But then I realized, oh my God, we are not in Kansas anymore, sweetie. This is not a red state. It is very different in California. And I really saw that difference. And I don't know why this is so terrible of me to say, but I just have to say it. This is how I felt. So I'm sitting across from this woman, just a regular ass woman. We're talking about things. The prompt was, how do you stay motivated? Like, how do you stay motivated to continue creating content? And this is a good question because when you are creating content every single day, which is kind of what you need to do in order to be recognized by the algorithm, and that goes across any platform whatsoever, it's hard to stay motivated when you'll have a week or a few days or who knows, months where you're not really getting that much traction on videos, and there's peaks and valleys. So you have to keep yourself motivated. So it is a very good question. So it's like, well, how do you stay motivated? So I asked her, like, how do you stay motivated? And she goes, well, ever since October 7th, it's been very difficult for me to stay motivated since October 7th. I said, what is October 7th? This woman looked at me like I just killed her childhood dog. Okay, her family dog. She looked at me like I'm a fucking vapid, dumbass influencer who knows nothing about anything. And she looks at me and she says, the Israel attacks. Obviously, I'm very much aware of the Israel attacks. It's terrible. It's a horrific event that occurred, and everything that's happening over there is just fucking awful. Do I know the exact date that it happened? No. She was so offended by the idea that I did not know specifically what happened on October 7th that my defense was obviously to remind her that people are humans and aren't historical encyclopedias. So I said to her, yeah, I also do struggle staying motivated. However, it has nothing to do with current events. It's more because over the past year, I found out my mom had terminal cancer. My boyfriend, who I lived with, was a heroin addict and fucking Bachelor contestant. So I really wasn't keeping up with world news, to be quite honest with you. And then, of course, she feels bad instantly. I probably delivered it in a much nicer tone than I am now. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. How's your mom doing? I was like, oh, she's dead. She died. Thank you for asking. I'm just sorry. I am so sorry that I was not keeping up with Israel. Like, I don't even have a car in my name. I hope Israel isn't depending on me to improve the current state of the country. I haven't filed my taxes in 3 years. My mother just died. I am a victim of circumstance over here. I'm sorry, I'm not keeping up with world news. It's not because I don't care or that I'm self-absorbed, which I am. It's just that I have really had the hardest fucking year of my life. And I think it's very rude and insensitive of a person to feel personally attacked if someone is not keeping up with the news. I'm sorry, I'm not. I didn't know what October 7th was, so this woman immediately assumed where I was January 6th. I was not at the White House. I was home, probably crying. Who knows what I was doing? Doesn't matter. Anyways, those are my takeaways. I'm very grateful for the invitation. I'm happy to be in California right now. I'm so happy to be seeing my friends. The air is crisp and nice. I love California. Oh, God. Okay. Another thing this episode will be, and I will forewarn you, is this will be my personal take on why Serene is just as evil as any Bachelor producer you blame for a contestant's poor decision making. I don't think she's a good person. I think she's manipulative. I think that her and my ex-boyfriend probably belong together. And I'm going to tell you this now. Anytime this situation is brought up, I feel like it is my personal responsibility to remind people how horrible these people are. I feel like that's on me. I'm here to remind you. And that's what we're going to do today. Because you know what I didn't do during my employment on that show? Is fuck Bachelor contestants. I mean, a lot of women didn't. But mainly me. I didn't fuck any Bachelor contestants. Another Bachelor news while we're on the subject. The Golden Bachelorette is airing. Who cares? Am I watching? People ask me, am I watching The Golden Bachelorette? No. Why would I be? It's disgusting. I don't want to see the elderly making out. I don't want to picture them having sex. There's just not much longevity to the storyline. It's like, what? Okay. They meet, they fall in love, they die. If I want to see two old people making out, I'll just go to fucking Publix. I'm living in Florida at the moment. So I really don't feel the need to watch it. No. Okay, so let's get to business. Clayton Echard, he has a new podcast, Beyond the Cover. Brandon Jones came to the podcast, took to the mic, and talked about his relationship with Serene, which he never had an opportunity to discuss. My thoughts on the podcast as a whole is this is why men should never have been given a microphone, because now they're acting like women and it's disgusting. Do I believe in men seeking mental health help? Absolutely. I don't feel like they need a platform to gaslight an audience. I think they already do that enough privately with women. And I think men should be seeking help with a trained professional in a room with somebody who has a master's degree in psychology, a doctorate perhaps. I don't think men should be talking about their feelings in an open forum yet because I don't think they're ready. I think that anytime a person is on a microphone and it's being recorded, there are ulterior motivations, whatever they may be. So why should a man who already is predisposed to a very enlarged ego, why should they be discussing their feelings and emotions on an open platform? I think they need to be doing the work in silence. All that to say, I do think Brandon Jones has every right to discuss his relationship with Serene. He was on The Bachelorette. He consented to allowing a audience to watch his personal relationship. And why can't he continue to talk about it? Just because he's a man, he doesn't get a place. He doesn't get a seat at the table. He has every right to discuss it, as does Serene. There's no timeline on disrespect. What did this happen 100 years ago? Yes. But there are obviously reasons why he waited so long to discuss it openly. So I'm going to get into a lot of things here, a lot of things that I have not said that I'm going to say today, right here and now. But first, I want to say, when listening to that podcast and listening to Brandon Jones discuss his emotions and what transpired between him and Serene, all I could think when watching it was this does not feel like Brandon. This does not feel genuine. And that's not to say what he was saying was not true. That is not that. It just felt like the tone was off. I felt like it needed to happen. He did it in the right place and he did what he had to do. But what I hope is to hear Brandon speak about this in another way with another person, maybe on another podcast, whatever it is, should he choose to continue discussing it. I think there was a lot that was left out. And I think obviously the subject and the whole idea of the show, Clayton's show, is to focus on men's mental health. So Brandon was probably trying really hard, working overtime, in fact, to match the tone. And that's just not him. And this is a segue into everything that I'm going to tell you. Okay. I really want to offer my opinion on all of this because I am very much involved in this, more than I think you probably even know or realize how much my relationship was involved in the rise and fall of Brandon Jones and Serene Russell from the Bachelor franchise. So let me start by separating these two individuals and my experiences with both of them. And I'm going to start with Brandon Jones. So Brandon Jones, he was on Michelle Young's season of The Bachelorette. I met him when my relationship with Kooks, the artist formerly known as Kooks, was just beginning. When I met Brandon Jones, he was full of life, full of good energy, good vibes. The man was already in love with Michelle Young before he even met her in real life. He already had a hard-on for her in a way I can't describe. He genuinely felt these things. That's one thing I can say for sure. Did I think it was ridiculous? Yeah, I thought it was weird. Like, why are you... I questioned his sanity, if anything, not his truthfulness. I never questioned that. So, Brandon and Kooks became fast friends. They were like brothers. Now, when you are a producer on this show, you are being paid to essentially be friends with these people. And that's not just this show. That's any reality show. When you are a producer that is interacting with the cast members, it is your responsibility and it is your job to become very close to them so you can guide them into making decisions on the show. You have an emotional relationship with these people. It is also your responsibility to communicate with the show about what these people are feeling and to guide them in a direction that's that's mostly beneficial for the show. And that's any show. Because after all, we're making a fucking television show. So I would say, I can tell you with confidence that the relationship between my boyfriend and Brandon went beyond the normal relationship between a contestant and a producer on a show. They were real friends. They were best friends. To be honest with you, it developed into them being best friends. Because my relationship was developing very early stages of dating with this producer, we were spending a lot of time together. And in doing that, I was spending a lot of time with Brandon. We got very close. I remember at the end of this season being in Michigan or Missouri, wherever the fuck we were, some M state, wherever the hell Michelle Young is from, wherever we were. I remember he and I sitting in catering, we were eating, and I remember confiding in him and telling him, I think I like this man, referring to Kooks. He loved it because he loves both of us, and he was so excited. From there, following the show, Brandon and my ex-boyfriend talked all the time. We hung out with him. I'm going to remind you again, specifically, I am separating Brandon and Serene in my experiences with both of them. And then I'm going to combine it in the end. So the next show I did with Brandon was Bachelor in Paradise. When I saw him the next time, he was a completely different person. I saw him before Bachelor in Paradise. I want to say maybe a month before that. He came to my ex-boyfriend's family's house and stayed the night. I don't remember if we were living together at that point or not. I think we might have been. I can't remember. So my ex-boyfriend's parents were out of town and we were watching the dogs. We were staying at the house. Brandon came into town. He spent the weekend with us. We had so much fun. Brandon and my ex-boyfriend got tattoos together. I got extremely drunk one night when my ex-boyfriend was still getting a tattoo. Brandon and I were hanging out at a bar. I was throwing up in the bathroom. Brandon took care of me. It was a fun night. The next time I saw him was on the show. He was a completely different person. For real. I fucking couldn't stand the dude. Honestly, nobody could. He was a complete asshole the entire season of Bachelor in Paradise, which is probably why you didn't see him a lot on the show, because he was a fucking dick. And so was his counterpart. To the extent that at the end of the season, Brandon wrote notes to people apologizing because eventually someone had to tell him about himself and he realized what a dick he was being. But he just was not the same. It was like he had this dark cloud over him. And at no point did I blame Serene at all. I just thought maybe okay, maybe he just never was the person I thought he was. I don't know who the fuck this person is. Maybe the show got to his head. I don't know, but I couldn't stand him and I didn't like him. Eventually at the end, he apologized. All is forgiven. Brandon and Serene get engaged. I'm going to get to that after I talk about Serene. Now, I'm going to tell you, I have since talked to Brandon Jones since the podcast with Clayton. Prior to that, he and I had not spoken at all. The last time he reached out to me was shortly after my breakup with my ex-boyfriend. I think he might have sent me a DM asking how I'm doing. I never responded. After the breakup, I just didn't want to talk to anyone from Bachelor Nation. I wanted to completely separate myself from everybody. I felt extremely betrayed, wronged. I didn't know who to trust. So of course, I'm not going to talk to him. And at that point, that was around June, I still didn't even know what I know now. So I will tell you that Brandon and I have since spoke, and he sounds exactly like the guy I first met on Michelle Young season. Just fucking nice, cool, funny, himself. So the reason he and I spoke is because I DM'd Brandon a few days after I heard Clayton's podcast to apologize. Because I think Brandon knew there was something going on between Serene and my boyfriend at the time, but he didn't know to what extent. And he heard it for the first time through my podcast, which I don't think is right and I don't think is fair. After listening to Clayton's show, I realized how selfish it was of me to post a podcast and not have any regard for how Brandon would feel listening to it, because he was equally, if not even more, betrayed by Serene and my ex-boyfriend's actions. And I don't think it's cool for anyone to hear something like that about someone they love through a podcast. I think I owed it to him to tell him on the side he deserved the same respect. Not that there's any respect regards to the situation that I had. We're learning about it privately. So I offered him my apologies, and we started talking. We started connecting a lot of dots, and we ended up talking on the phone, and I'm really glad we did. And I'm really happy that he's happy and that he's in a good place, because he sounds exactly like the guy he was before the show. So let's get into the Serene of it all. Okay. Serene was originally on Clayton's season, a contestant on his season. Going into Clayton's season, my relationship status. So Kooks and I developed a relationship on Michelle's season. We were very messy about it. We would disappear all the time. Following that season, we ended up getting in trouble. We had a meeting where our bosses separately told us that they know what's going on. They know that we're seeing each other and basically need to stop. Or if you are in a relationship, you need to disclose it to HR. However, we don't think it's a good idea. And then outside of those meetings, I individually spoke to people who are my bosses who told me personally that they don't think it's a good idea, without getting into too many details, that I probably shouldn't date this individual. As mentioned earlier in this episode, I would defend Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm that type of bitch. If I'm in love, I'm going to tell you something. I watched this Netflix show the other night. So on Netflix, I watched Into the Fire, The Lost Daughter. It's a docu show about 14-year-old's disappearance. There's a woman on the show who is married to a man who is literally a pedophile. And this woman, Barbara, okay, I think her name's Barbara. We're going to go with Barbara. Literally would hear about all of this man's wrongdoings, and she's still defending this man. I'm not Barbara, but low-key I'm Barbara, okay? I was Barbara in that relationship hardcore, okay? I believed anything this man said. I was stigmatized, okay? So after those meetings, we continued to see each other. He also was struggling with drug and alcohol abuse. He had a lot going on. We ended up breaking up. On the day we were driving to Agora Hills, to the mansion, to check in, to start this new journey, he offers to pick me up. I say, yes, come pick me up. He picks me up from my home. We drive to Agora Hills and we stop in Malibu to have lunch. Jokingly saying this is probably the last time we will eat for the next couple months, because you work an insane amount of hours and rarely have time to consume nutrients. We stop in Malibu, we have lunch, we walk on the beach, we start kissing, and we're back. Because we had this thing, this electricity. And then we're back. We're moving into each other's hotel rooms, and that was it. We're like, this time we're going to keep it fucking locked and loaded. We are not telling anyone. We're not telling a soul. I remember one night we were staying in the hotel and we ordered ice cream, and all the producers are staying on the same floor. We order ice cream from room service in like these cute little glass dishes. After we eat it, he puts it outside the door. And as he's opening the door, our boss walks by. And he goes, oh, 2 ice creams, eh? And Kooks goes, yeah, I guess I'm really hungry. And he came in, he's like, oh my God, I just saw blah, blah, and he saw the ice creams. And I was like, oh my God, we're freaking out. We start the show. I want to say it was a few days into being at the mansion. I remember seeing Serene, didn't really know her. I wasn't her producer. My boyfriend wasn't her producer. I remember seeing her talking to my boyfriend, and I was looking at her and I was like, oh, she's into him. You can just tell. That was my first indication. But, a lot of people were into him. You would think the girls that this guy has pulled and had wrapped around his finger, that this guy was fucking George Clooney, not even Bradley Cooper. You'd think he's Bradley Cooper. No, he's literally not. He literally has a high-pitched voice and an average-sized penis. It is the most ridiculous thing. However, he is 6'4", so I guess people are into that. And he is very charismatic. It's ridiculous. Listen, I know why I was behind the camera, okay? I'm a 6, okay? On a good day. These are very gorgeous women who are going after this dude. It makes no sense. Obviously, also, you're confined in a house with 30 women. I mean, I think like a fucking stale potato chip looks hot when you're in this environment. So I don't know who's to say. But anyways, I knew she liked him. Knew she had a thing for him. Like I said, a lot of girls did. Wasn't a big deal. I remember hearing things here and there. Oh, Serene has a crush on this producer. Whatever. It comes with the territory. We start traveling. Serene has another producer. A producer who I honestly was not the biggest fan of. Didn't really like her. Wasn't my friend, per se. Okay? We had our own issues behind the scenes going on. This individual was very protective of her relationship with Serene because obviously she saw the longevity of her on the show and took special interest in making sure that their relationship was close and tight so she wouldn't lose her. So we get to Austria. I've told this story before. I'm going to tell it again. We're in Austria. This man is an addict. I have discussed this. He entered Clayton season sober. While at the mansion at some point, he had a relapse. Now, when traveling, it is very difficult to travel with the drug that he took a special liking to. So when we go on the road, he ditches the drug, he gets sick and has withdrawals. So during that time, I'm covering for him. I'm trying to do my job. I'm trying to hide the fact that I have this relationship with this individual. There's all these things occurring. We get to Austria. By the time we're there, he's finally feeling like a person again. He's able to do his job again. And I am with Susie at this point, who ended up, I guess, quote unquote, winning the season and being in a relationship with Clayton. I'm with her. I'm on a date with her as her producer, not romantically. God, you're disgusting. And at the end of the night, he and I are alone together. He tells me, while you were gone, Serene and Genevieve pulled me into their hotel room. They were drunk and they flashed me their tits. As a critical thinking individual, why do I keep saying individual? As a critical thinking person, woman, I immediately had questions because number one, my instinct was not to believe him. That's just weird. I just don't see it happening. So I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean they flashed you? He's like, oh, they flashed me and they wanted to have a threesome. I'm like, there's no way these girls flashed you. What do you mean? What do their boobs look like? Describe their nipples. What? No, I don't believe this shit. There's no way that these girls flashed you. This man comes out and tells me every fucking detail, describing their tits and everything. And like, yeah, maybe it is disgusting of me to ask him to describe their boobs. It was more just because I didn't believe him and I'm trying to poke holes in the story because there's no way that fucking happened. He convinces me that this did happen. I believe it wholeheartedly. From then on, regardless whether they knew or didn't know that he and I are in a relationship, I find that fucking disgusting. Number one, you're here to pursue The Bachelor. Number two, he is employed on this show. Number three, you don't know his life. Number four, why are two girls flashing my boyfriend? I hated them. I felt uncomfortable anytime he was alone with them. Knowing that, obviously, he was careful with his moves out of respect to me with these people moving forward, even though he didn't really have much respect for me, clearly, because whatever. This is where things get interesting. It's coming to the end of our time in Austria. One night, my boyfriend comes into the hotel room and says to me, oh my God, you're never going to believe this. You can't tell anyone this is happening. I was like, what the fuck's going on? One of the benefits of dating somebody that you work with is you get a little extra tea. It's really fun, especially when people don't know you're together. You really hear about things. So he tells me, I think I'm going to Serene's hometown. I was like, what are you talking about? How? This girl is her producer. Why are you going to her hometown? He's like, well, this is what happened. So Serene tells a handler and a producer she's not comfortable with this producer that has been working with her. She makes her uncomfortable. She doesn't like her. Whatever she said. She says things about this producer to them, which gets this producer dismissed from the show, from the rest of the season. And my immediate reaction was, wow. So it was Serene who finally did it, who got rid of this woman, because I didn't like her. So initially I was thankful for the bitch to do that. because I didn't like this girl. So I was like, great. But then my next thought, and what we talked about in this moment when he's telling me this story, is wait a second, that's actually kind of fucked up. Regardless of whether I like this producer or not, I mean, that is really shitty and embarrassing for her to have to experience this, to have your contestant go above your head and say how much she doesn't like her. What did this girl do to you? This is where the red flags really started waving high in the fucking air. I was like, well, why you? Why is it you that's taking her on the hometown? I don't understand, because he doesn't have a relationship with Serene. Why is he the one? So they ask her, well, who are you comfortable with, Serene? What producer makes you comfortable? Kooks, of course. Oh, weird. Why? He hasn't produced any of your dates, interviews. Why is it that the 6'4", only good-looking man employed on the show, why is it that he makes you comfortable? That's what I knew. And he and I talked about it. I'm like, this girl just likes you. She wants to fuck you. That's why she picked you. We knew. It was very obvious. Then he had to reassure me, no, that's not going to happen. This is a really good opportunity for me to do this hometown. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I didn't want him to do it because I felt uncomfortable with the whole situation. First of all, this girl, in my mind, I don't even know if this is true or not. Later, Serene and Genevieve denied this ever happening. However, who the fuck knows what's real and what's not? He did describe to me in great detail what happened. However, they debunked the story later. At the time when they told me it's not real, I believed them. I don't know what's true. But at this point in time, I'm feeling very uncomfortable. My boyfriend's about to be taking this woman who allegedly flashed him and who I know has a crush on him to her hometown to spend all this alone time with her. She had to go out of her way to get a producer dismissed from the show to make this happen. Felt very fucking calculated, dude. It felt calculated in the moment and still now. And even more now, actually, in fact. So Serene gets this girl off the show, gets my boyfriend to be her producer to go to her hometown. Okay. I don't even really want to talk about that experience that week because it is hurtful, but a lot of things happened. A lot of things were said that made me very uncomfortable. I did not feel good the entire time. It distracted me from my job. It was shitty. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of the things that happened, not because I'm trying to protect anybody other than myself. And it's hard for me to talk about. That's it. After that, we get back from the show. He and I are hanging out. His phone is blowing up, not only from Serene, but from Genevieve too. This isn't just Serene, but his phone's going off. Okay. These girls are texting him nonstop. I'm getting annoyed. Why are they talking to you so much? It's part of my job. Like, this is what I do. Okay, well, it's my job too. We have the same exact fucking job, the same exact position, the same exact responsibilities. These girls aren't blowing up my phone like this. This is ridiculous. This is out of line. One time he went to the bathroom or something, and I'm a shifty bitch. Okay, I pay attention. I know what his passcode is, not because he told me, but because I have good peripheral vision. I see what his passcode is. He mistakenly doesn't bring his phone to the bathroom one time. I go on there. I see what the fuck's going on in these fucking text messages. And what I see, I don't really necessarily like. Genevieve, Serene specifically, sending pictures in bikinis, sending pictures at the gym. It just was not appropriate. At the same time, I didn't want to say I looked through your phone. But let's just say our relationship wasn't really good at that point. There were a lot of fights. Not okay. I want to remind you of this story. This is not pertaining to Serene, but during the Women Tell All of Clayton's season, Shanae was one of my girls from that season. And obviously, Shanae and Genevieve had controversy. Shanae got on stage and said, when I got home from the show, I was sad. When you got home, you fucked Aaron Clancy from Katie's season. So the truth behind that story is prior to Shanae getting on the stage, she was hesitant to say that. She wanted confirmation before she went on there that really did happen. We were all under the belief that they hooked up, and we knew the exact date it happened because Genevieve posted stories with him. And it happened to be the night before my birthday. So I said to Kooks, hey, can you confirm with Shanae that this happened? Because she just wants to make sure it's true before she goes up on stage and says that. He was like, no problem. I need to talk to Aaron first and just give him a heads up that this is happening. As far as I knew at that point, and as far as I knew up until August 12th, that did happen. That it was Aaron and Genevieve hooking up, and which was further confirmed on Bachelor in Paradise when they did on the show, in fact, have a relationship with each other. There was no reason for me to believe, other than the fact that Genevieve was very texty with him, that did happen, that it was Aaron. Come to find out, no, it wasn't Aaron who fucked Genevieve the night of my birthday. It was actually my boyfriend, and he kicked her out right before I got there for him to take me out for my birthday. Cool. Anyways, continuing. Good. Another season elapsed. Rachel and Gabby's season. That was the season we told each other we loved each other. Everything was beautiful and amazing. Fairy tale. I'm like, oh my God, wow, we found love on the Bachelor behind the scenes. How cute and adorable. Going into Bachelor in Paradise, I want to tell you that he and I had a lot of conversations about how I felt on Clayton's season. We had a lot of issues on that season, not just with his drug use, but with the behavior between him and the women of the show. At that point in our relationship, we had talked about it ad nauseum, and we had an understanding with each other. I was very clear that I never want to feel how I felt on that show ever again. And you need to handle these relationships with these women very professionally, because I am not going to be in a relationship with somebody who is making me feel uncomfortable consistently. I support you. I want you to do your best on this show. I want everything to be amazing for you. And you can still do that without having inappropriate relationships with contestants. There are several other people on this show who are men who are married who don't do that. Besides that one executive producer who fucked Claire Crawley, but that's besides the point. That's another point in time. So anyways, it is achievable. It's possible. People have careers in entertainment without cheating on their wives. So I expect you to show me the same respect. That'd be nice. Thank you. So he was actually being very respectful towards me with that. He and I were having conversations about getting married, about having kids, naming our children. We were in a full-blown fucking relationship, flying to Florida to hang out with my family. We were best friends with his parents, okay? There was no fucking question about what was going on at this point in time. So we go into Bachelor in Paradise. Let me remind you, prior to starting that show, Brandon comes and spends the night at my boyfriend's parents' house. Everything's hunky-dory. Now, as we're getting closer to the show, it's becoming apparent that Brandon is very interested in Serene. What is not apparent on the show, and what I know to be true, is that prior to starting Bachelor in Paradise, Brandon and Serene already had a relationship. They were already seeing each other in person. Now, this is not something that the show knows. This is something I know as a friend. This is where the lines start getting blurred. And this is where it's very confusing and very hard, and where it became very challenging to do our jobs. My boyfriend had a very close relationship with Brandon Jones that exceeded the typical one that you would have with a contestant. They were actual friends. They were best friends. And Serene liked my boyfriend, very much so, to the point that it was inappropriate. Now, the conversations that my boyfriend and I were having behind the scenes that were separate from the show, that were more on the grounds of like being a ethical and moral individual and a friend, was, how are you going to encourage this friend of yours to start a relationship with this girl who likes you? It's kind of weird. My boyfriend never disclosed those things to Brandon, obviously, for obvious fucking reasons. There's so many levels and degrees to this story that supersede anything that has to do with the show. This has nothing to do with the show, because the show has no idea this stuff is going on. So we go into the show. Obviously, Brandon's a piece of shit on the show, treating us with so much disrespect. Everyone, Serene, right behind him. They're in their own fucking world the entire time. I have to say that I really don't believe Brandon Jones to be a love bomber. I think a lot of people's perception when watching the show is like, wow, he really just like love bombed the fuck out of Serene. No, they already had a relationship before the show. I don't think he's a love bomber, because a love bomber is a person who pours an overwhelming amount of emotions and feelings onto someone who they intend on manipulating and leaving. Brandon Jones has every intent of following through with the emotions that he projects onto these women, Michelle Young and Serene included. He's a lover boy. I think he's very naive. I think he's very gullible. I think he's a little immature. And I think he's the perfect victim. I don't think at any point he was manipulating Serene. I think, in fact, it was quite literally the opposite. Okay? Following the show, Brandon and Serene had problems all along. That relationship was never healthy. As soon as the show ended, what changed? There was a shift because my boyfriend was, on paper, both of their producers. But after the show, it was Serene that was calling my boyfriend all the time, trying to keep him on the phone for hours. Now, it was so excessive that he would put her on speakerphone, mute the phone, go into the kitchen, make a sandwich, and come back, not listening to one thing she was saying. It also felt very much like she was trying to develop and form this relationship with my boyfriend, and that she had it under the belief that maybe he was like hiding in the corners talking to her away from me because she knew we lived together. I don't know why she didn't think that he wasn't going to tell me everything that was happening. He did a lot of shitty things, but when our relationship was very strong, we were tighter than anything. We told each other everything. I can sit here and trash him for days and say all these horrible things he did wrong, but when our relationship was strong, when we were living together, there was nothing I did not know. I mean, there's probably things I didn't know. I mean, whatever. But in terms of the show, because he knew how much it hurt me on Clayton's season, he was very careful with my emotions and with me and making sure that I was comfortable with things. At this point, we had disclosed to the show that we're together. Everybody knew we were, all those things were happening. After the show, after Serene and Brandon are public with the world that they're together, all, whatever. I think it was December of 2022. We invited them to come over and hang out. They were living in San Diego. They come over to our home, and I'm just going to try to put myself back in this situation. I had just went to a wedding. When I was gone that weekend, my boyfriend relapsed. So he was high off his fucking ass when these people came over. We're sitting in the living room. I'm sitting there. He's sitting next to me. Brandon and Serene are sitting across from us, and I'm looking at Serene, and her eyes are dead centered on my boyfriend to the point where it was very uncomfortable. I was like, you really aren't even trying to pretend what your interests are at all, are you? You really don't give a fuck, do you? My boyfriend has no idea that this is happening. He does not have the ability to read a room because he is so high off of his ass. He's getting up every 2 seconds, washing dishes, being fucking chaotic. This is why I called him Kooks, because he's fucking kooky. He was being kooky and crazy and had no idea what was happening. But I knew. Apparently Brandon did too. There was something she said on the couch. We were talking about Zyn, the nicotine pouches that you put in your mouth. I put one in my mouth, and she said, "Oh, I can't believe you do those. How do you stand it? How do you stand to have it in your mouth?" Da da da. I was like, "Oh, I'm kind of used to it by now." Like, it started with we would cuddle, and then he'd give me one. And at first I'd get dizzy, and now it's I feel like I can't even cuddle without having a pouch in my mouth. And that's the truth. It was this little ritual we did. We'd get all comfed up. We would put pouches in our mouth, and then we'd hold each other like our lives depended on it. So I said this story, and she says, I tried one in kind of a similar kind of sense. I was laying on the bed, and someone gave me one, and then she stops herself ooh. But the way she said it, it was calculated. Once again, it was she knew what she was doing. It was she was trying to incite a fight between my boyfriend and I. She dropped this little nugget and then took it back. I was like, did they fuck during the hometown? I can't confirm or deny it. I don't think I'll ever know. But I suspect it. I suspect it heavily. They left. My boyfriend and I talk about it. I'm like, did you see how she was looking at you? Da-da-da-da. Was it a fight? No. It was more just like, God, she really still likes you after all this time. And she's with him. Like, this is weird. It was more just like, God, that's fucking weird. So he's high as shit. When they were over, we were talking about his parents' boat and that we were going to go on like a joyride and they should come. Did we think they were actually going to come? No. They drive back to San Diego that evening. Why would this new couple drive back from San Diego, which is like 2 hours from our house, to go take a fucking joyride on my boyfriend's parents' boat around Long Beach for 15 minutes? Why are you going to drive 2 hours to do that? It was weird. I was very surprised that they said they'd come, because we're not talking about a yacht party here. We're talking about a guy who's concealing his drug addiction and two old people on a boat cruising around for 15 minutes. Why would you drive 2 hours to do that? It was weird. They came. They were so quiet and weird. Like, they just fought. I didn't know this. I learned this after the fact, like Brandon's perspective, that I learned this the other day when Brandon and I spoke on the phone, that basically Serene was encouraging him to like go into the boat to get drinks, basically trying to push him away so she could be alone with my boyfriend. And the entire drive home for them consisted of a fight about that. Brandon was feeling it too. But for my experience during that time, it was more just like, that sucks for Brandon. The entire thing sucks that she did that, because Kooks was not reciprocating her energy during that time. Obviously, after that, a lot of things happened personally in my life. These people were not my concern. My concern at this time was this man who I am in love with, who I intend on spending my life with, is suffering, is relapsing on heroin, and trying to get him healthy. What I didn't realize at the time, but what I did realize once he went to rehab, when I gave him an ultimatum that was, if you don't go to rehab, this relationship is over. What I didn't realize is that I was very codependent. You have to understand that me and Kooks during this time, we worked together on a very demanding show that required the majority of our attention. We lived together. We spent every moment together. When he went to rehab, I had a complete breakdown. I was on the floor crying hysterically. Like, I didn't know how to live my life without him, because we had spent so much time together over, I don't know what it was, 2 years, never a day apart for a year at least. It was like losing my best friend, losing everything. Because when someone goes to rehab, it's like pretty much going to jail. Like, you can't talk to them really at all. And I had a lot of realizations during that time. Also during that time was when my mom started hemorrhaging. Oh my God, don't cry. Do not cry. And when she went to the doctor to eventually find out that she has terminal cancer. And so that was just like the hardest time of my life ever. So fucking hard. And so again, like, these people were not on my mind at all. And eventually, obviously, we broke up. And when we did break up, and I'm not going to get into all those specifics, I've already talked about it before, don't need to do it again. I will say this one thing though, like, when someone gets out of rehab, they are so broken down, and it's like they are a child again. And so while I was processing the fact that my mom was going to die, he was finding who he was as a person, because people who are addicts do not feel comfortable in their own skin when they are sober. And it's almost like they have to relearn just very simple fucking things, because they don't know how to operate without being on drugs. So I'm crying, having breakdowns in the fetal position about my mom. And he's saying to me, can you go downstairs and do that when he gets back from rehab? It was very fucked up. I'm not trying to blame him. He was very much there for me in so many instances during our relationship and tears and other things, but he could not. Again, I don't owe this man anything. I don't need to be defending him for anything. This is just like the honest to God's fucking truth about how these things unfolded. But like he was not capable or able to support me emotionally during that time because of his own shit, recovering from a heroin addiction. It's very fucking heavy and hard. We could not be together. The relationship ended. We need to go our separate ways. What I didn't know is that like one of his huge motivators was how badly he wanted to get his dick wet. So when we do break up for real, because there's a lot of breakups back togethers of this whole thing, but when we for real break up and I kick him out, I say to him, I don't give a fuck what you do. You could go bang a bunch of Victoria's Secret models. I'm happy for you. Do not have sex with anyone from the show. That is embarrassing for me. He told me he wouldn't. What does he do the very next day? Hit up Genevieve and Serene and other people who it doesn't matter. I also want to say that when we were very good in our relationship and when we were saying we love each other and everything was like really blossoming, I remember saying to him very specifically, listen, I had a lot of suspicion when you and I were first dating about your relationship with Genevieve and Serene. Now is the time to tell me. Please tell me now. Did anything happen? Mind you, this man trusts me more than anything because of all the secrets I fucking kept for him and covering for him on our show where he's doing drugs, not just by himself, but with other contestants, doing a lot of fucked up shit. And I always covered for his ass. The trust we had with each other during that time was insane. So when he denied it to me and he knew, and I told him I would never reveal it to a soul. I just want to know for myself, did anything happen? I already forgive you if it did. We were dating. It was just starting. If you did it, you did it. Just tell me. He denied it all the way through and through. Looked me dead in the fucking eye. I love you. I want to be with you the rest of my life. I would tell you. I trust you more than anybody alive. I would tell you. I believed him. Why would he lie at that point? He did. He did. Oh boy, did he lie. So, okay. Keeping that in mind, when I say this to him, in my mind, he's never hooked up with anyone from the show. Obviously, we know that people like him and that if he wanted to do that, he could. So, come to find out later, literally the next day, he hits these people up. So, months go by. There are periods where he and I are like seeing each other again. He's living back at the house, all these things. God, this is a long episode. Sorry. I do want to just tell you like what my mental state was during this time, that summer of, was it 2023? That summer I was suicidal. I was down and out. I felt like I had lost everything in my life. Prior to my mom's diagnosis, my boyfriend's heroin relapse, and losing my job on The Bachelor, which heavily had to do with my relationship with this man. And just starting a new career of posting on TikTok and being this creator. When we broke up, I stopped posting for a while. So at this period in my life, I felt like I had nothing. I felt like I was losing everything. And it was crazy because a month before, I felt like I was getting everything I ever wanted in my life. I just got this platform where I was able to be creative and express myself as an individual, however I wanted to do it. I was in this loving relationship where I loved his family and we were going to get married and have kids. I was living in this beautiful apartment. I had the car I wanted. I had all these things that I wanted. I was so happy. I was so fucking happy. And it was like that. It was gone. And I couldn't post because I'm like, my platform is based on, storytelling, but a lot of the storytelling having to do with my relationship. And a lot of people who follow me were really interested in that. And I'm like, what do I even say? Am I even ready to say it publicly? Which is why I'm very hesitant to ever display who I'm with. Like, I feel like I'd have to be married to do that because it's hard. No matter who the fuck you are, if you post your relationship online, to have to, it's just such a weird world we're living in where it's like, It's like this extra thing. It's like I wasn't even thinking about people who follow me about talking about it online. It was more thinking about like people in my life that I wasn't ready to deal with, like, oh, texting me like, oh, you guys broke up, all those things. You know, it just fucking sucks. So I was so down. I'm losing my mother. I'm not posting. I'm like, what's happening with my career? Especially because posting, doing what I do now was such a risk, which is why it took me so long to start posting on Instagram, because doing this, it's like, who's going to ever fucking hire me again if I'm doing this? I was like very much a professional before I started posting online. I really didn't have an online presence at all. I was very professional, and I was a person that led teams of producers, that had a very high ranking jobs on shows, had a lot of responsibility. And now I'm branding myself as this crazy woman to the world. And it was like, what? I was so fucking lost. And then my best friend's gone. I'm losing my mom. I'm fucking sitting in this apartment. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I was so down. And I remember this really fucking good friend of mine. He took care of me so much. I've talked about him on the show. I remember him like encouraging me. I could cry talking about it. I told him my idea for petty spaghetti, where I was going to make shrimp scampi and put a piece of underwear on top, because, you know, I found underwear in the dryer, which is ultimately what led to me kicking him out of the house. And he bought me the ingredients several times, and they went bad in the fridge. Even when I was staying at his house, he bought me the ingredients. They went bad in the fridge. I bought the ingredients. They went bad in the fridge. I was just sitting there like rotting away because I didn't know how to come back from this on so many levels. And so finally I did, and I was getting everything ramped back up. My life was good again. I was seeing my friends again. We were doing things. I was creating a new life for myself, planning how I'm going to spend time with my mom, what is going on, just so many things. He reemerges into my life again. I was fostering a puppy. He came over. We started coming over a lot. We started sleeping with each other. He started living at the house again, secretly. I wasn't talking about it online. Eventually, I did post a video because he pissed me off one night. I didn't even say in the video that we were seeing each other. I might have hinted at it in some videos. I think I did a video where I was like, hypothetically speaking, if this, and this happened, would you get back together? And everyone told me off in the comments. Now, this majority took place on TikTok, because at this point, I wasn't really posting on Instagram. So if you did want to see those videos, that's where you can find them, is on TikTok. The details of how I learned this are irrelevant. But I found out that my ex-boyfriend, Kooks, lied about a lot of things that occurred in the early stages of our relationship. And as a producer, an investigator, and just a generally curious individual, I, of course, took it upon myself to do my own research. Let me get the facts here. And I did get the facts. There was a communal iPad in the home where I had the password, and it was linked to his iCloud and his iMessages. And I went through there, and you bet your bottom dollar that I read every single fucking text, bitch. I read every single text. I saw everything he was doing. Back to Serene and Brandon, which is what this is really about. Because I want to be specific, because if I'm not specific, we'll be here for fucking 2 days, 48-hour podcast, and I'm not going to do that. So specifically with Serene, I read every single text message between them after our relationship. And within those text messages that I still have copies of, text messages that I have sent to Brandon Jones. Did I send him every single one I have? Absolutely not. You always got to keep a few, tricks up your sleeve. And I always do, sweetie. Within these text messages, she says it's great that they're no longer on the show and that they can finally admit their feelings and it's not wrong, that she never liked Clayton and she always liked him. She was never in it for him. She was in it for my boyfriend. All that was in there. So coincidentally, this August 12th weekend, Genevieve happened to be with Serene on a trip. Now, I'm also texting Genevieve. She was the first person I reached out to. And her and I developed a kinship. It was almost like we were sister wives at that point. It's so funny because I would say Genevieve had a stronger relationship with my boyfriend than Serene did. So her and I, it almost felt like we were the girlfriends and Serene was the other woman. Like this entire scenario is so beyond fucked up, and how this man was able to get, again, I'm no fucking Scarlett Johansson, okay? I'm like bottom of the barrel here. But these women are gorgeous. The fact that he was able to get these girls who can get any guy they want, it's so wrapped around his finger, and all of us in this fucking love square is beyond me. I don't know. You have to tip your hat to the man. He's got game. Okay. So her and I are texting. We're going back and forth. We're like, about this whole thing. She ends up sending me like her breakup text to him. And within that breakup text, the reason why she ended things with my boyfriend was not only because of videos I posted about him following the breakup, but also because she found out he was also talking to Serene and pursuing Serene. So she was like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm going to be your second choice again. I was already your second choice and you dropped me for Alanna. Now you're going to do this to me with Serene. I'm fucking done with your ass. That was pretty much the vibe of the text. Like, fuck you. That's when I was like, wait, so, okay. I'm like, okay, I need to go back to these texts and start writing down the dates. I start like doing the math here about how much crossover there was with everything. And it was fucking disgusting. So I'm like, okay, well now I'm going to reach out to Serene. So Genevieve tells me she hasn't told Serene that I reached out to her, nothing. Serene has no idea what's going on. So I send Serene a text message. Mind you, again, Genevieve and Serene are in a hotel room together while this is happening. I'm sitting on my couch. Genevieve and I are text messaging back and forth, rapid fire, okay? All this stuff is happening. I'm feeling like I'm a fucking investigative journalist, like I'm fucking Michael Moore. It's Bowling for Columbine up in here, okay? This is fucking crazy. You have no idea. It's like everything I knew was a fucking lie. It was so wild in this moment. It was off the charts. I text Serene. I say what I say. I'm like, Genevieve, what's she doing? What is she doing right now? Genevieve's like, she hasn't said anything to me. She's looking intently in her phone. And we're like, what is she going to say? What is she going to say? And so then Serene comes back to me and basically says, because I didn't tell her at this point that I had seen text messages. So she says to me that my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, came on to her and he was always very inappropriate with her. It made her uncomfortable. That it was weird. And she even told Brandon about it. And like, she stopped talking to him because of how uncomfortable he made her. Oh, really, Serene? That's so interesting. That's very interesting. So of course, I text Genevieve and I tell her everything that she just said. And Genevieve's like, oh my God, she told me the same fucking thing. And we're just like, this bitch is a fucking liar. She is a freaking liar, telling us both. I'm telling freaking Genevieve what the text messages say. And all I say to Serene when she says that is, I've seen the text messages. That's all I said. I never sent her what I have. I never explicitly told her what I saw. I simply said, I've seen the messages. The subtext of that text was, bitch, cut your shit. Stop playing games with me. Do not play games with me, bitch. Okay. All this happens. I talk to these people on the phone. We eventually are in a group chat. I'm thinking to myself, well, why would Serene tell me the truth? I wasn't really reading into anything that deeply outside of myself and what was going on. Because it was so much at once to learn. And I felt very grateful that they felt comfortable enough to tell me their versions of the truth of what happened. Because for so long, I had so many questions and doubts and not trusting my gut. And I was just very grateful that they were sharing with me what they did. A part of me felt a need to protect them. Like I didn't want to throw them under the bus. So when I did eventually do my 2-part podcast going through the whole relationship, I didn't name them by name. As time went on, my perspective changed because I started thinking about it more and more and just how much time I'd spent with these girls and the shared trauma that people have on the show. Just the fact that they came back to him after we broke up and I really just started ruminating on all that, which eventually led me to my New Year's episode where I just went the fuck off and said their names and said fuck all. Because I was like, fuck you. You did that. You made your choices. You knew how much it would hurt people doing that. Back to Serene more than anybody, because I think she is the most guiltiest of every single person who participated in this fucking mayhem. She is just as bad, besides the sexual assault allegations against my ex-boyfriend, which obviously I have to say are allegations and are allegedly, because nothing has been proven in court. But, you know, I've never come on this podcast and told a fucking lie. Besides those transgressions, I think she is just as fucking evil and manipulative as he is. I truly fucking feel that. So I posted that episode. This is so long ago. We're talking about last January. My life has moved on. Everyone's life has moved on. Who fucking cares anymore? Okay. After I posted that episode, I think Serene might have texted me and said, hey, call me. Genevieve called me. I never got back to them. I was like, it's done. Justice has been served. There's no need for us to ever have a dialogue. There is nothing in this world that would ever make me be friends with those people. The fact that you were capable of doing that at your ripe age to another individual is beyond disgusting to me. Beyond disgusting to me that you could do that. It's so hurtful and disrespectful. I can't. Here's the other thing. Now that I have hindsight, now that I can actually think about all these things, and I think back to the talks I had with Serene specifically, this bitch was trying to manipulate me into not saying her name. And I fucking feel that so wholeheartedly. I want to kind of put this all into perspective for you. There was this whole relationship with Brandon before Serene ever entered the chat that existed. It's so crazy to think about everything that happened. It doesn't even feel real anymore. So as a person who has at points in time had a close relationship with Brandon and Serene and everything that I know and how Brandon was during that time, who he was as a person, how he changed so much during the time he was with Serene. He was not himself. I really do think there are a lot of elements of truth. I really do think Serene probably has really fucking shitty videos of him, for sure. Absolutely. I also remember during the time that Serene and I were talking, her telling me with her own words, I might even have it in a fucking text. I probably do. That she could destroy Brandon very easily. I think she used that as blackmail for Brandon. I think she was very calculated in all of her moves with Brandon. I don't think she ever really wanted to be with Brandon. I think she did it specifically to have a public relationship in an effort to gain more followers and attention. That also made me think for a second that maybe this whole thing was like planned, that Brandon was going to come forward. But after talking to him, it's not that I'm trying to stick up for Brandon when I say this. I just think Brandon is way too naive and gullible and not, honestly, I don't think he's capable of manipulating. I don't think they did this on purpose, like for attention or anything, but I do think that Serene, she's very calculated. She cares very much about her image. And a lot of people do. A lot of people do come on these shows and that's what they care about. Like, I'll give an example. Susie Evans. She very much is protective of herself and the people in her life and her image. However, the difference between Susie and Serene is Susie didn't fuck my boyfriend. Okay. Susie, there's no part of that woman that is like that. She's a very fucking good person and has very good intentions. Serene, no. I think she's protective of her image. And I think she has a lot of fucking skeletons in the closet. I do. I think she's a trash human. I think that Brandon was a shitty boyfriend. I think Brandon probably treated her like shit. I think she also treated him like shit. I think she was very manipulative to him. I think she purposely recorded him to make sure she had something on him so she could protect herself when the relationship inevitably ended. I think if she were ever to release anything, that it would probably be doctored. I would want to see the full tape. I want the raw footage. Okay, baby. Beginning to end. No cuts. No cuts, baby. Because as you know, as a Bachelor contestant, and all the things that they complain about the show taking footage and manipulating it and editing it and doing this, let's get the full tape, baby. Beginning to end. Okay? I don't think Serena ever wanted to be with Brandon. I think she used him. I think that she always wanted to be with my boyfriend, even all the way from the start of Clayton's season. I also want to say that what a lot of people forget when watching this show, and I think it's important to say, is that these people who come on the show are regular people. We're talking about fucking medical sales reps, nurses, teachers, personal trainers, real ass people not actors, coming on a show unpaid to consent to air their journey, attempting to fall in love and all of the relationships in between. And when they leave the show, there is no instant monetization. There is no check being handed to them. There is no monetary gain from doing this. There's the hope. It's like playing the lottery. It's like 30 people go on a show in hopes that maybe they'll get famous or find love. One of the two. Everyone has different motives, whatever. And a lot of times, even if they do make it to the end, it doesn't change their lives. They have to go back to work. Then these people are going about their lives. People are stopping them in the streets. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? These people are regular people, novices to the entertainment world, going on a set, being guided by people who are getting a paycheck from the show, who are they are believing to be their friends. And sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. And making decisions that aren't always entirely their choices. It's always rooted in how they really feel, but it might not necessarily be something they would actually do in real life. And then they're being judged and crucified for these decisions in the outside world. And there's no gain for them. What is the gain? 10 minutes of fame? Years later, they still go to the store and people are saying, oh, I saw you on this, you know? So that to say, how is Brandon Jones or Serene Russell or anybody from the show supposed to navigate that? When you leave the show, you have no help. You're not guided. You just have to go back to your life. And whatever decision Brandon makes on how he decides when he wants to air his dirty laundry or not is up to him. And he might not know how to do it the perfect way, a way that the public can consume it. I don't think that podcast really was a correct depiction of the things that he experienced. Also, I did listen to She's All Batch, the episode a few months ago where Serene went on there. I actually listened to it when it came out, and I was going to talk about it on my podcast, but I decided not to because I just didn't see the point. And I listened to that, and I heard Serene say things like, you know, I loved the show. I loved everyone on it. I think the She's All Batch people were told by her team to not bring up Brandon or anything like that. Listen, not to bring up Jeffrey Dahmer again, but do you think Ted Bundy or any fucking serial killer or criminal wants to come on and talk about their crimes? No, of course she doesn't want to fucking talk about it. And all I could think when I was listening to that fucking podcast was this bitch is a fucking liar. She did not like any producers. She got someone dismissed from the show. Are you kidding me? This is the biggest lie I've ever heard. It was such bullshit. It was such bullshit. Oh my God, this bitch is the biggest fucking liar I've ever met in my life. I can't even take it. It's so laughable. Yeah, I don't know. That's that. That's all she wrote. Anyways, I appreciate you listening. This is my life. We talked about it. We discussed it. It's been discussed. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Again, this is Recipe for Crazy. Alanna Noel. Love you. Bye.